Ladies and gentlemen, we've been taught since childhood to chase goals, get the grade, land the job, buy the house, achieve the dream. And yet, in the silence of achievement, something feels missing. That's because today I want to challenge everything we've ever believed about success. I want to tell you a truth that might feel uncomfortable at first, but could set you free forever. There is no goal. What do I mean by that? I mean, life is not a destination. It's not a checklist. There's no grand finish line where everything finally makes sense. What we call goals are often just illusions that keep us running in circles, waiting for some future moment to make us feel whole. But the truth is, the only thing that's real is this moment, right here, right now. From the earliest stages of life, we are conditioned to believe that goals are essential to our existence. Society tells us that without a clear destination, we are drifting aimlessly. We are encouraged to set objectives, create vision boards, and measure our worth through achievements. But beneath this well-polished structure lies a hidden truth. Many of these goals are not rooted in genuine personal desire, but in external validation. They are often handed down to us by culture, family, or institutions that define success in narrow, standardized terms. As a result, we pursue them not because they fulfill us, but because we fear what will happen if we don't. The concept of goals creates a psychological construct that focuses our attention on a future that doesn't yet exist. Instead of being grounded in the now, we are constantly projecting ourselves into a place of what could be. This future or mindset can subtly detach us from the richness of the present moment. We begin to believe that life will begin only once we've arrived, once we've earned the degree, bought the house, achieved the title, or ticked the box. But the problem with this thinking is that the finish line keeps moving. As soon as one goal is reached, a new one is created. And we remain in an endless loop of striving, never quite arriving at the satisfaction we were promised. This endless pursuit can lead to burnout, disillusionment, and even a crisis of identity. When our lives revolve around chasing something always just out of reach, we become trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction. Our emotional well-being becomes tied to performance, and our self-worth fluctuates based on how close we are to achieving the next thing. This illusion convinces us that fulfillment is somewhere out there, always a step away, just over the next hill. This illusion convinces us that fulfillment is somewhere out there, always a step away, just over the next hill. In reality, it trains our minds to be discontent with the present, to overlook what we have in favor of what we think we need. Moreover, when we treat goals as the only markers of success, we overlook the organic, unpredictable beauty of the journey itself. Some of life's most meaningful experiences, chance encounters, unplanned detours, unexpected failures, don't fit neatly into a goal we are narrative. When we are fixated on reaching a target, we might miss those moments entirely. The obsession with progress often blinds us to the process where real growth and learning occur. It is this process, unquantifiable and often messy, that holds the essence of a meaningful life, not the goal itself. In a world that constantly urges us to look ahead, It's easy to forget that the only time we ever truly experience is the present. The past is a memory, and the future is an idea. Neither can be touched, altered, or lived in. Yet, ironically, most people live their lives either clinging to what has been or anxiously anticipating what could be. The present moment becomes nothing more than a bridge between the two, often ignored, underestimated, and undervalued. But in reality, it is the only place where life actually happens. Everything else is a shadow of what once was or what might be. Modern life, with its schedules, deadlines, and constant stimulation, further detaches us from the present. We are pulled into the future by notifications, goals, and ambitions, while simultaneously haunted by regrets or nostalgia from the past. Our minds become time travelers, bouncing between what we can't change and what we can't control. This mental state breeds restlessness and prevents us from fully engaging with what's right in front of us. Our relationships, our emotions, our breath. We become so obsessed with managing time that we forget to experience it. Living in the present is not a denial of responsibility or ambition, it is a recognition of reality. The simple experiences, when truly seen and felt, are noticeable details that otherwise get lost. These are schools del lavitanum. These are depths that no flow. There are no stimuli for contrast religion. They are not moments to rush through on the way to something better. They are life itself unfolding. They are life itself unfolding. Moreover, embracing the present cultivates peace. When we stop trying to live in an imaginary timeline, we remove a massive burden from our shoulders. We stop striving for control over what hasn't happened and release ourselves from the weight of what we cannot undo. This doesn't make us passive, it makes us present. And in presence, there is power. There is clarity, groundedness, and the ability to respond to life instead of reacting from fear or fantasy. The moment we truly inhabit the now, we stop running and start living. One of the most common traps we fall into is the belief that happiness is conditional, that it will arrive only after we achieve a particular goal. This mindset sounds like I'll be happy when I graduate, or I'll feel fulfilled once I'm successful, or I'll finally relax when I retire. But what this really does is delay our ability to feel contentment in the present moment. We unknowingly push joy further and further away, tying it to external achievements that are often uncertain, unpredictable, and constantly changing. In doing so, we rob ourselves of the peace and satisfaction that could exist right now in this very moment. Chasing goals tends to create a tunnel vision that blinds us to the small, beautiful things already present in our lives. We become so consumed with getting there that we forget to appreciate where we are. Meals are eaten in a hurry, conversations are had with divided attention, and days blur into weeks, months, or years spent reaching for something always just out of reach. Joy becomes a delayed reward instead of a daily practice, and because the goalpost often moves once we've reached a milestone, many people end up spending their entire lives waiting for happiness rather than living in it. Even worse, the pursuit of a goal can sometimes bring stress, pressure, and emotional fatigue that further distances us from joy. The constant striving to measure up, outperform, and win in some form can make joy feel like a luxury we can't afford yet. We say, let me finish this first, and then I'll rest. Then I'll smile. Then I'll celebrate. But that moment rarely comes, or if it does, it is fleeting. And soon enough, another challenge takes its place. By postponing joy, we start associating it only with success, rather than recognizing it as something that can and should be experienced independently of achievement. The truth is that joy is not a trophy at the end of the race. These are not things we have to earn. They are gifts already around us. But to notice them, we must be willing to pass. Perhaps love, Ulyan B. That is, in a society that glorifies productivity and measurable success, it's no surprise that many people begin to equate their worth with what they achieve. From an early age, we are praised for winning, for getting good grades, for excelling in sports or arts. This praise conditions us to believe that our value is directly linked to outcomes and recognition. As adults, that belief often deepens. We feel worthy only if we have a good job, make a certain amount of money, or reach milestones others admire. But this framework is deeply flawed because it ties our identity to things that are ultimately external, unstable, and impermanent. True self-worth is not something you earn. It is something you already possess by virtue of being alive. Every human being is inherently valuable, regardless of their performance or accomplishments. Yet we rarely internalize this truth because we are so caught up in comparing ourselves to others. Social media, professional competition, and cultural expectations constantly whisper that we are not doing enough. This constant comparison turns self-worth into a scoreboard. And as a result, many people spend their entire lives trying to prove they are good enough, without realizing they already are. When self-worth is dependent on accomplishment, we start living in fear. Fear of failure, fear of not meeting standards, fear of being judged. This fear doesn't just paralyze us, it limits our potential. We begin to act from a place of freedom rather than fear, and our actions become more genuine, courageous, and joyful. This shift in perspective also fosters self-compassion. Instead of beating ourselves up when we make mistakes or fall short, we begin to understand that those moments do not define us. Failure becomes part of the journey, not a verdict on our identity. We stop measuring ourselves by how much we've done and start appreciating who we are. This doesn't mean we stop trying to grow or improve. It means that our motivation comes from love, not lack. And that distinction is what ultimately leads to a life that feels meaningful and whole. Growth is often portrayed as a structured process. Set a goal, map out the steps, track progress, and measure success. While this approach may work in certain contexts, like business or fitness, personal growth is rarely so linear. Human development is complex, emotional, and unpredictable. It doesn't unfold according to a spreadsheet or timeline. In fact, some of the most transformative experiences in life come when we least expect them, without a set target in sight. These moments emerge from spontaneous challenges, deep introspection, or unexpected detours that teach us more than any predefined objective ever could. When we focus too narrowly on rigid goals, we risk missing the broader evolution taking place beneath the surface. We may become so obsessed with reaching a particular milestone that we overlook the emotional, psychological, or spiritual development occurring along the way. For instance, someone might aim to build a successful career, and in that journey, they unknowingly learn patience, resilience, or how to work with others, skills far more impactful than the title they eventually earn. Growth, in its truest form, isn't always about external outcomes. How the internal shifts that is always about external experiences that create an experience. Moreover, a rigid focus on targets can discourage exploration. When we are fixated on a specific endpoint, we might hesitate to try new paths or pursue passions that don't directly align with our stated objective. But life isn't a straight line, it's a collection of experiences that build upon one another in surprising ways. The person who abandons their original plan to follow a creative spark may end up discovering talents they never knew they had. The individual who fails at their original goal may gain a level of wisdom and humility that would have remained dormant otherwise. Flexibility in our pursuit allows space for serendipity and self-discovery. Most importantly, genuine growth is not about being perfect. It's about being present with who we are becoming. It means listening to our intuition, embracing uncertainty, and recognizing that progress doesn't always come with a certificate or applause. Some of the most meaningful transformations happen quietly, when we choose kindness over ego, when we learn to forgive, or when we finally stop running from our own reflection. These subtle shifts are not often measured, but they are powerful. They remind us that we are always evolving, even when it doesn't look like success from the outside. Purpose is often misunderstood as something grand, distant, or tied to legacy, a monumental achievement, a lifelong mission, or a breakthrough contribution to the world. While such interpretations of purpose can be inspiring, they also create unnecessary pressure. They make us believe that purpose must be found, chased, or discovered far away from where we are. But in truth, purpose doesn't always reside in a destination. It resides in presence. When we are fully here, fully aware, and fully engaged with life as it unfolds, we begin to experience a deeper sense of meaning that cannot be manufactured by ambition alone. Being present allows us to connect with the richness of our day-to-day lives. It transforms routine actions into opportunities for intention. A conversation becomes more than an exchange of words. It becomes a moment of empathy. A walk becomes more than movement. It becomes a way to witness the world. When we are present, even simple gestures gain significance. We are no longer just going through the motions to get somewhere else. We are grounded in where we are. And that grounding gives us a deeper understanding of what matters. That clarity is not abstract, it is experiential. It is the seed of true purpose. Presence also sharpens our ability to notice the needs around us. When we are not preoccupied with the next task or outcome, we become more attuned to the people we encounter and the world we inhabit. We notice who needs our help, who needs to be heard, who needs a little kindness. Purpose then stops being a solo pursuit of success and becomes a shared energy, something that flows from our attention to others. In this state, we are not striving to be someone. We are simply showing up with sincerity, which often has a greater impact than any plan we could carefully design. Furthermore, living with presence cultivates authenticity. It strips away the masks we wear to meet societal expectations or personal insecurities. In presence, we meet ourselves honestly, without distraction or denial. We learn what we truly care about, not what we are told to care about. And that knowledge becomes our compass. When we act from that inner alignment, our actions carry weight. They may be small or quiet, but they feel right. They feel real. And when our life begins to feel congruent with who we are at the core, we realize that purpose isn't something we chase, it's something we live. The notion of a finish line is deeply ingrained in our cultural mindset. From a young age, we are told that life is a race, one that begins with academic success, accelerates through career ambitions, and supposedly culminates in personal achievements that mark us as accomplished or fulfilled. We are constantly striving toward a destination: graduation, promotion, marriage, retirement. Yet the finish line we chase is often elusive, constantly shifting and rarely as satisfying as we imagine. The irony is that while we are chasing it, we often miss the very life we're running through. The path becomes blurred, overshadowed by the obsession with arrival. Letting go of the finish line does not mean giving up on growth or progress. Rather, it means releasing the rigid attachment to predefined outcomes and embracing a more fluid, organic way of living. It means recognizing that life is not about checking boxes or accumulating trophies. It is about experiencing, adapting, evolving. When we unshackle ourselves from the constant pressure to arrive, we begin to breathe more freely. We start to see that every moment holds value, not just those that appear at the end of a journey. we find room for spontaneity, creativity, and authentic expression. This detachment from the finish line also allows us to reconnect with ourselves on a deeper level. When we are not consumed by the next destination, we begin to ask more meaningful questions. Who am I without my goals? What brings me joy when no one is watching? What would I do if success was no longer the measure? These questions open up a sense of inner freedom that cannot be reached through accomplishment alone. We begin to understand that our true essence is not defined by where we are going, but by how we exist in each step along the way. The pressure lifts, and with it, the fear of falling short disappears. Most profoundly, letting go of the finish line cultivates a kind of liberation from comparison. No longer racing against others, no longer measuring progress by external standards, we begin to walk at our own pace. We listen to our inner rhythm, respond to our personal needs, and craft a path that is entirely our own. It is in this surrender, not of ambition, but of control, that we find peace. Not because we've reached the end, not because we are not running toward life. We are already living it. If the classic method of reasoning. So when we let go of the idea that life must be measured, directed, or completed like a task, we begin to uncover something far more powerful: presence, freedom, and truth. Life is not a ladder to climb, but a river to experience. We don't need to reach a final destination to find meaning. We simply need to be awake to what's happening right now, because in this very moment, totative, not in some future success or final goal, we already have access to everything we have been searching for: peace, connection, purpose, and joy. The journey itself is the reward, and that in the end is more than enough.